The Sunday afternoon sun painted the quiet street in soft gold. 8-year-old Aya Seagal skipped along the sidewalk, clutching her worn storybook to her chest. Her laughter echoed, light and carefree, as she rehearsed the poem she had memorized for her mother. Birds fluttered across the sky, and for a moment everything felt safe. Then a police cruiser rolled up beside her. The car slowed, tires crunching against gravel. Behind the tinted window, Officer Ray Dunning watched her with a hard, expressionless stare. He stepped out, his boots heavy on the pavement. "Where's your guardian, kid?" His voice carried false authority, layered with menace. Aya froze. She wasn't used to strangers questioning her, much less a uniformed officer. Clutching her book tighter, she whispered, "I'm just going home." Dunning's lips curled. "Not so fast." He grabbed her arm roughly, yanking it upward. Pain shot through her tiny body. She screamed, a shrill cry that shattered the stillness of the street. The book fell to the ground, pages fluttering in the breeze. Aya's trembling fingers fumbled for her phone. Through tears, she pressed a single button, dialing her mother. "Mom, help," she sobbed, before another wrench of pain silenced her voice. Lauren Seagal's phone buzzed against the kitchen counter as she washed the dishes. She almost ignored it, but the trembling voice on the other end froze her blood. "Mom, help, he's hurting me." Aya's sobs cracked through the speaker, followed by a muffled thud and a scream. Lauren's heart dropped. "Aya, where are you?" "Stay on the line." Her hand shook as she grabbed her keys, sprinting for the door. Steven Seagal, sitting silently at the table, looked up sharply. He had only needed to hear 2 words, Aya's voice. His chair scraped back, and in seconds he was at Lauren's side, his massive frame steadying her trembling hands. "Hospital," Lauren gasped. "Now!" They sped through traffic, sirens in the distance guiding them. When they reached the emergency ward, Lauren's worst fears came true. Aya lay on a stretcher, her small arm twisted in an unnatural angle, her face pale and streaked with tears. Doctors swarmed around her. Lauren collapsed beside her, clutching her hand. "I'm here, baby. I won't let anyone hurt you again," Aya whimpered. "It was the police, Mama. He said I couldn't go home. He broke my arm." The words cut deeper than any blade. Steven stood at the doorway, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. His eyes burned, not with panic, but with a silent storm that promised retribution. A nurse touched Lauren's shoulder gently. "Your daughter is stable, but she's terrified." She keeps repeating the officer's name. "Ray Dunning." Lauren's jaw hardened. She pulled her phone from her pocket, already searching. Within minutes she found him, a smug-faced cop, casually laughing in a photo with his badge pinned proudly. Steven looked over her shoulder, his voice low and gravelly, each word carrying the weight of a threat. He hurt the wrong child. Lauren nodded, eyes narrowing. "We're going to make sure the whole world knows it." The beeping of hospital machines filled the silence that followed. Aya clung to her mother's hand, whimpering softly, but she was safe. For now. What Officer Dunning didn't know was that Aya's family wasn't ordinary. She was the daughter of Steven Seagal, and neither he nor Lauren were about to let this brutality be buried. This wasn't just personal anymore. It was war. 2 nights later, the neon sign of Charlie's Diner buzzed faintly in the evening air. Families chatted over burgers and coffee. Waitresses balanced trays, and the atmosphere hummed with small-town routine. At a corner booth sat Officer Ray Dunning, uniform shirt unbuttoned, laughing with another patrolman. He dipped a fry into ketchup, completely at ease, as though he hadn't shattered a child's arm days earlier. The door creaked open. Lauren Seagal stepped inside, leather jacket zipped, hair tied back. Her eyes scanned the room, icy and deliberate. Behind her, Steven followed silently, his broad frame a shadow of controlled fury. The room seemed to shrink under his presence. Lauren's boots clicked against the linoleum as she strode toward Dunning's table. Diners turned, conversations paused. She stopped inches away, her glare fixed on the cop who had dared to touch her daughter. "Well?" she said coldly, her voice carrying through the diner. "Look who's enjoying his fries like nothing happened." Dunning looked up, smirk fading as recognition struck. "Mrs. Seagal." "This isn't the place." Lauren leaned forward, planting both hands on the table. "The place? You broke my 8-year-old's arm. You terrorized a child. And now you're here laughing?" Her voice trembled with restrained rage. The other patrolman shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe we should—" Stephen's stare silenced him. One look and the officer dropped his fork. Dunning forced a chuckle. "Listen, kids exaggerate. She probably tripped—" Lauren cut him off, her phone already recording on the table. "Say that again." "Right here, to everyone listening." Murmurs rippled through the diner. A waitress froze mid-step. Customers leaned in. Dunning's jaw tightened as he realized the trap. "You think your badge makes you untouchable?" Lauren pressed on. "It doesn't. You touched the wrong child." "My child." She straightened, her words sharp as blades. "You didn't just brutalize a little girl. You picked a fight with her parents. And trust me, you won't win." Dunning's smirk faltered completely. Sweat beaded at his temple as phones around the diner lifted, customers recording every second. Stephen finally spoke, his deep voice quiet but heavy as stone. "Enjoy this meal, officer. It's the last one you'll eat in peace." The silence that followed was deafening. Dunning shifted in his seat, cornered not by fists but by the weight of truth. Lauren scooped her phone from the table, ending the recording with a snap. She leaned in one last time, her whisper venomous. "You're done." She turned sharply, Stephen following her out. As the diner door swung closed, the room erupted in hushed chatter. Within minutes, the video was online, Lauren's words cutting across social media like wildfire. By morning, millions would see it, and Officer Ray Dunning would learn that one reckless act had set fire to a storm he could never contain. This wasn't just a family's fight anymore, it was becoming a movement. By dawn, the diner video had exploded across the internet. Lauren's voice, sharp and fearless, echoed through millions of screens. "You touched the wrong child. My child." The words became a rallying cry. News anchors replayed the footage, commentators debated, and hashtags trended. Justice for Aya. No more silence. A cop accountability. In living rooms across the country, people who had never heard of the Seagal family now saw Aya's tear-streaked face and her cast-wrapped arm. The image of a little girl broken by the very person sworn to protect her struck like lightning. At the hospital, Lauren scrolled through the flood of support. Comments poured in. Parents, activists, and strangers offering prayers, outrage, and promises of action. Aya, still fragile, peeked over her mother's shoulder, eyes widening at the outpouring. "They believe me?" she whispered. Lauren kissed her forehead. "They believe you, sweetheart, and they won't stop until you're safe." Outside, a crowd gathered. Dozens of people, then hundreds, holding signs chanting Aya's name. "No justice, no peace," rang through the air. Stephen stood at the hospital window, arms crossed, watching the wave grow. His jaw clenched, but this time it wasn't silent rage. It was resolve. The system that protected Officer Dunning would now have to answer to something bigger than one family. Reporters swarmed the steps, microphones flashing, demanding statements. Lauren finally stepped outside, her voice steady despite exhaustion. "This is about more than my daughter," she declared. "This is about every child who's been silenced, every family broken by abuse of power. We're not backing down, not until justice is real." The crowd roared in agreement, chants rising louder. Inside his precinct, Ray Dunning watched the news in disbelief. The smug smile he wore in the diner was gone. His name wasn't a badge of authority anymore. It was trending as a curse. For the first time, fear seeped into his gut, because the world wasn't just watching. It was demanding blood. The courthouse steps were swarming with cameras. Reporters jostled for position, microphones thrust forward, while protesters lined the sidewalks holding signs that read, "Justice for Aya," and "Protect our children." Not corrupt cops. Lauren Seagal walked forward with Aya's small hand clutched tightly in hers. Aya's cast was still on. Her eyes wide but steady, her chin lifted as though she knew the whole world was looking at her. Stephen flanked them, towering in silence, his presence alone cutting a path through the chaos. Flashbulbs exploded. Questions flew. "Mrs. Seagal, how does Aya feel about testifying?" "Mr. Seagal, do you believe Officer Dunning will be convicted?" Stephen didn't answer. His eyes stayed fixed on the courthouse doors, unblinking. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Journalists filled every bench, sketch artists hunched over notepads, and activists held their breath. At the defense table, Officer Ray Dunning sat stiffly in a suit that didn't hide the sweat dampening his collar. His lawyer leaned close, whispering strategy, but Dunning's gaze kept flicking toward the child across the room. the child whose bravery had dragged him here. The judge entered. All rise. The room lifted, a hush falling like a curtain. The prosecutor began. This case is not about rumor or speculation. It is about a sworn officer of the law who brutalized an innocent 8-year-old girl. You will hear her voice. You will see the evidence. And when you do, you will know that no badge can shield a man from accountability. Lauren squeezed Aya's hand, whispering, "You're brave. Just tell the truth." Aya nodded, her small shoulders squaring. When called, she walked to the witness stand with slow, deliberate steps. The room seemed to lean toward her. A bailiff helped her into the chair, her tiny legs dangling. The prosecutor smiled gently. "Aya, can you tell us what happened that day?" Her voice trembled at first. I was walking home. He stopped me. He said I couldn't go. When I tried, he grabbed me. He pulled my arm. It hurt so bad. I screamed for my mom. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Dunning's lawyer jumped up. Objection, she's just a child, easily influenced. The judge silenced him with a glare. Overruled. The witness may continue. Aya sniffled, but her voice grew steadier. I thought maybe nobody would believe me. But my mom did. And now, all of you know the truth. The silence was absolute. Even the judge leaned forward slightly, his gavel forgotten. In that moment, Aya wasn't just a child. She was the voice of every silenced victim, and the jury was listening. At the defense table, Dunning shifted, realizing that the courtroom he once thought was his shield was becoming his execution ground, and the trial had only begun. The courtroom air was thick with tension as Officer Dunning's lawyer rose for cross-examination. He straightened his tie, feigning confidence. Aya, he began smoothly, you're very young. Isn't it possible you misunderstood what happened? Maybe the officer was just trying to guide you safely. Aya's small hands gripped the edge of the stand. She looked down for a moment, then lifted her chin. Safe people don't break your arm. Safe people don't make you cry for help. Her words, simple and unshaken, pierced the room like a blade. A murmur swept through the gallery. The lawyer's smirk faltered. Children exaggerate. Perhaps you tripped. Lauren shot up, fury flashing in her eyes, but Stephen's steady hand held her back. Aya answered before her mother could speak. I didn't trip, he hurt me. And I'll never forget his face. The defense crumbled. The prosecutor's closing argument sealed it. If justice means anything, it must mean protecting the most vulnerable among us. You heard, Aya. You saw the evidence. Don't let a badge excuse brutality. Hours later, the jury filed back in. The foreman stood, voice firm. We, the jury, find the defendant, Officer Ray Dunning, guilty on all counts. Gasps erupted, followed by applause that the judge's gavel couldn't silence. Lauren wept quietly, pulling Aya into her arms. Stephen, stone-faced, gave a single nod, the storm inside him finally easing. Across the room, Dunning sagged in his chair, the weight of the verdict crushing the arrogance that once dripped from every word. Outside, the crowd thundered with chants of victory. Reporters shouted questions, protesters raised banners, and Aya, holding her mother's hand, stepped into the light. For the first time since that terrible night, she smiled. Justice had spoken. But the war for change was only beginning. The courthouse victory echoed across the nation. Aya's bravery became a headline, Lauren's defiance a viral anthem. Protesters celebrated, and for one night, the Seagal'S allowed themselves to breathe. But victory has a way of attracting enemies. 2 weeks later, Lauren was driving home when flashing lights appeared in her rearview mirror. She pulled over calmly, but her instincts tightened. The officer approached with a smirk far too familiar. Lauren Seagal? He asked. Step out of the vehicle. You're under arrest. For what? She demanded, already recording with her phone. Resisting police authority. Interfering with an active investigation. He recited, eyes cold. Lauren laughed bitterly. Translation, you're scared because your golden boy went down. The cuffs clicked, but by the time she reached the precinct, reporters were already outside. Within hours, her arrest video hit the internet. Instead of humiliation, the attempt backfired, fueling outrage. Inside their home, Stephen monitored news feeds, his jaw tight. Aya sat curled on the couch, clutching her stuffed bear. Why are they still after us, Daddy? Didn't we win? Stephen crouched, his massive hand resting gently on hers. When you shine light on darkness, the shadows fight back. But shadows can't win forever. That night, their family computer flickered. Hackers flooded their accounts with threats, grotesque messages targeting Aya. Lauren, newly released on bail, scanned through them, rage burning hotter with every word. "They want us scared," she said. "They want us silent." Stephen's eyes narrowed. "Then we'll speak louder." The next day, the Seagal'S walked arm in arm into a press conference. Cameras flashed wildly. Lauren stood tall, voice unshaken. "They tried to lock me up. They tried to smear us. And now they're coming after my daughter with threats. But hear me clearly, we are not afraid. My family will not be silenced, and we will not stop fighting until every child in this country is safe from abuse of power." The crowd roared. Supporters cheered, signs lifted higher. What the system intended as intimidation had become fuel for a growing fire. Aya stepped forward, gripping the microphone with her tiny hands. Her voice was soft, but it carried. "They can scare me. They can hurt me. But they can't stop me. I want every kid like me to know. Your voice matters. Don't let anyone take it away." The crowd erupted in applause, tears streaming down faces. Somewhere in the back of the press hall, a figure watched, a senior official whose career thrived on protecting men like Dunning. His lips curled. "This family doesn't know what war really is," he muttered. But Stephen had already sensed it. The battle wasn't over. It had only escalated. The storm reached its peak. The Seagal'S had endured brutality, lies, false arrests, and threats. Yet instead of breaking, they had only grown louder. 1 month after the verdict, thousands filled the National Mall. Banners rippled in the wind, chants thundered across the Capitol. Justice for Aya. Justice for all. At the center stage stood Aya, her cast finally removed, though her arm still weak. She clutched the microphone with both hands, eyes wide as she looked out at the sea of faces. For a moment, nerves threatened to silence her. Then she remembered the night in the hospital, when she thought no one would believe her. Now millions waited for her voice. "My name is Aya Seagal," she began softly, the crowd leaning in. "I was scared. I thought I was too small to matter. But when I spoke, people listened. Not because I'm special, but because the truth is powerful." Applause broke, but she raised her hand, steady and brave. "This isn't just about me. It's about every kid who's been hurt, every family who's been silenced. We can't change what happened to me, but we can change what happens next." The crowd erupted. Tears streamed down Lauren's face as she gripped Stephen's hand. Even his stoic expression softened, pride glowing through the stormy calm. That day, the movement found its name. Families for Integrity, Safety, and Truth. FIST. What began with one child's cry for help had become a national call for reform. In the weeks that followed, new laws were drafted. Whistleblowers inside police departments stepped forward. Communities united across states demanding accountability. And everywhere Aya's words were replayed. The truth is powerful. At home that night, Aya sat curled on the couch between her parents. "Did I do okay?" she asked shyly. Lauren kissed her forehead. "You did more than okay. You started something bigger than all of us." Stephen, in his quiet rumble, added, "You made them listen." Outside, the chants still echoed through the city. The war wasn't over, but the tide had turned. Aya Seagal, once silenced, now unbreakable, had become the voice of a movement. The weeks after Aya's speech felt like history in motion. News outlets replayed her words daily. Politicians scrambled to align themselves with the movement, and ordinary families poured into the streets demanding reform. FIST was no longer just a rallying cry. It was becoming a force. But for every person inspired, there were powerful enemies who saw their grip slipping. In a dimly lit boardroom, men in suits sat in silence as a government official placed Aya's photo on the table. "This little girl has become the spark," he growled. "And sparks lead to fire. If we don't contain it, we'll lose control." Another leaned forward. "We've already tried smearing the mother. Arrests, leaks, didn't work. The father's reputation is bulletproof. Our only move now is disruption from within. We infiltrate FIST, plans were drawn, money was funneled. And soon whispers spread. FIST isn't what it seems. The Seagal'S are profiting. It's all a scam." Lauren first saw the headline on her phone while preparing breakfast. Her hands trembled. "They're trying to make us look corrupt." Stephen's face darkened, but his voice stayed calm. "They fear you, Lauren. That means you're winning." Aya, still in her pajamas, frowned. But lies spread faster than truth. Stephen crouched beside her, his hand heavy but warm on her shoulder. Then we'll keep speaking truth until even the liars can't drown it out. The next fist rally was different. Alongside supporters came hecklers shouting insults, holding signs that accused the Seagal'S of fraud. Cameras captured every clash. Reporters spun both sides into headlines. Lauren took the stage anyway. "They think lies will silence us," she declared, her voice rising above the noise. "But we built this movement on truth, and truth doesn't break." The crowd roared, drowning out the jeers. Yet Lauren could feel the weight of the campaign against them tightening like chains. That night, a brick crashed through their window. Aya screamed as glass scattered across the floor. Stephen was already on his feet, scanning the street outside, but the shadows were empty. Lauren pulled Aya close, whispering, "They're trying to scare us back into silence." Aya's small voice was steady. "Then we can't let them win." In that moment, Lauren realized her daughter wasn't just the face of Fist. She was its heartbeat. But in the shadows, their enemies were evolving, weaving a deeper web. Political allies, police unions, and hidden financiers joined forces, determined to choke the movement before it reached unstoppable momentum. The Seagal'S had lit a fire. Now the system was preparing a storm to put it out. And this time it wouldn't just be whispers or threats. This time it would be war. The storm came quietly at first, like a slow leak no one notices until the floor collapses. At Fist headquarters, a rented community hall packed with volunteers, the energy was buzzing. Posters were stacked, laptops hummed with social media campaigns, and families lined up to share their stories. Lauren moved through the crowd like a commander and caretaker all at once, guiding, encouraging, listening. But Stephen noticed what others missed. A new group of volunteers had appeared overnight. They were too polished, too rehearsed. One man asked too many questions about donations. A woman pressed for access to Fist's internal files. Stephen's instincts, sharpened from years of dealing with deception, screamed trap. That night, his fears were confirmed. Breaking news blared across every channel. "Fist under investigation for financial misconduct." Anchors replayed clips of so-called whistleblowers, claiming the Seagal'S were siphoning donations. Social media exploded with hashtags Fist fraud and Aya used. Lauren's phone buzzed nonstop. "They planted people inside," she muttered, fury and exhaustion mixing in her voice. "They fabricated everything." Aya sat on the couch, tears brimming. "They're saying you stole money. But you didn't. Why are they lying about us?" Stephen knelt in front of her. "Because liars are loud, Aya, but truth lasts longer." The next morning, chaos erupted. Donors pulled funding. Partner organizations hesitated to stand beside Fist. Volunteers who had once been fearless now wavered, afraid of being dragged into the smear campaign. At a press conference, Lauren faced a barrage of hostile questions. "Mrs. Seagal, did you funnel Fist funds into your personal accounts? Are you using your daughter's story to enrich your family?" Her voice shook at first, but she steadied herself. "We've stolen nothing. The only thing we took was our right to speak, and no amount of lies will strip that away." But the damage was real. That night, Stephen returned home to find the locks on their door jammed, their mailbox pried open. Aya clutched her stuffed bear, whispering, "Daddy, are we safe?" Stephen's jaw hardened. "As long as I breathe." Still, even he knew the net was tightening. Lauren pored over files, determined to clear their names. "They want us destroyed in the court of public opinion before we can make a difference," she said. "If they discredit us, the movement dies." Stephen put a hand on her shoulder. "Then we expose them first." Somewhere in the city, in another sleek boardroom, the conspirators toasted. "Phase 1 is working," one man said with a smile. "By the time they realize, it'll be too late." But they underestimated two things: Lauren's fire and Aya's unbreakable courage. The storm had struck, but the Seagal'S weren't about to be washed away. The smear campaign left Fist bleeding, but Lauren refused to surrender. Night after night, she combed through files, bank statements, and volunteer records. Her eyes burned from exhaustion, but determination pushed her past the edge of fatigue. One evening, Stephen entered quietly, a USB drive in hand. "I followed one of their volunteers," he said. He met with a lawyer tied to the police union. Guess what was on his laptop? Lauren's pulse spiked. "Evidence?" Stephen nodded. "Emails. Direct orders to infiltrate Fist, plant fake documents, feed the press. He placed the USB on the table. We've got them. Aya, sitting nearby with her sketchbook, looked up. So we can prove they're lying? Lauren hugged her daughter tightly. Yes, baby. We can. The next day, Lauren called a press conference. Reporters, expecting a defensive plea, instead watched as she projected email chains on the screen behind her. Names, dates, payment records, all tying the smear campaign directly to the police union and their political allies. These aren't rumors, Lauren declared, voice ringing like steel. This is corruption documented in black and white. They didn't just attack me. They didn't just attack Fist, they attacked justice itself. Gasps filled the hall. Cameras zoomed in on every damning word. Aya, seated in the front row, whispered to Stephen, "Mom's winning." But Stephen knew it wasn't that simple. When powerful men were cornered, they didn't surrender. They struck harder. That night, their phones lit up with threats uglier than ever. Online, trolls screamed that the emails were forged. Protesters surrounded Fist's office, some violent, others confused. The battle had shifted, but it was far from over. As Stephen bolted the door shut, Aya tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, can I say something at the next rally?" Stephen hesitated. "It's dangerous." Aya's eyes burned with quiet fire. "They keep trying to erase me. But if I stop speaking, they win. And I won't let them win." Stephen looked at her, pride and fear colliding in his chest. His daughter wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was a warrior. The counterattack had begun, and Aya wanted to lead it.